I want to thank my next guest who is sitting over this way, and it's always backwards when you're on Zoom. You have to point the wrong way. But either way, he's sitting there. This is Andrew Wiltsey. He's, if you know him, he's the star of Daisy Fresh on Flow Grappling. He's a Pedigo Submission black belt. What are you? You're number 6 now, right? At 185, is that right? So
yeah, I think I'm number 6 at 185.
All right.
Yeah.
So moving up, we'll fix that soon. It'll be even higher and higher. And then he also has a new dog named Riddle. And if I'm not mistaken, you recently got him clipped, which was very, very disturbing for both parties, right?
Yeah, yesterday he got clipped. It's the responsible thing to do. It's what you're supposed to do. He's a half Border Collie, half Australian Shepherd. I'm not really, interested in breeding him. And there's a lot of controversy about that. But what should you have your dog clipped or not? I think you should if you're not planning on specifically breeding him. So he is bouncing back pretty well right now.
Yeah, I had an American Bulldog, and I felt the same way. Where I was like, "Come on, buddy, we got to get in the car. We got to go." And I took him, and then as soon as I saw his sad face, he came out of the doctor. I was like, "Damn, I'm an asshole." But it is the thing. You kind of need to do if you're not going to breed him.
He thought he was going to doggy daycare to play with the other puppies. So that's where the unfathomable sadness came from. Full betrayal. He was so excited too.
All right, cool. So I know that you're getting ready for the road to ADCC, right? You have Roberto Jimenez.
Yeah, fuck me. That's a fucking hard match. He can lose. People can beat Roberto. He's lost a ton of fights. He's lost to a lot of people, but nobody has done it without throwing up afterwards. He's just that good and that tough. And me and him have a history. We're actually 2-2, but I beat him twice in a row when he was a fucking kid, essentially. And then the last couple times he got the better of me. The last time he actually just kind of beat the shit out of me. So it's going to be a hard match. I don't guarantee I'm just going to beat him up, but I'm going to do my best.
Have you started putting your game plan together, or do you not really have a game plan? You just kind of see what happens and go with what feels natural.
What's the point of a game plan at ADCC rules? You can't pull guard without getting a penalty. You're not allowed to pull guard. So it's okay, we're going to wrestle until someone fucks up and gets taken down. And whoever the person is that fucks up and gets taken down, then you're playing from there, essentially. So plus there's no points for the first 10 minutes. So the ADCC rules make things a little bit different. In terms of specific things, yeah, there's a little bit I'm working on specifically for him because I kind of know how he moves a little bit. His sprawls are not like a normal human would sprawl. He jumps really, really high into the air off of every one of his sprawls. And you can take advantage of that if you're ready for it. You can spin out to either side, make him belly flop on the mat and not get sprawled on. But yeah, there's some specific things we're working on for him. But he's a good friend of mine, actually. Me and Roberto have been we talk back and forth. We hang out sometimes when we're at the tournaments. I think he's an awesome dude. I'm fucking excited I get to do another match with him on a big stage like this. You always want to go against my friends. I want to be friends with everyone.
Yeah, and this is essentially for you guys, it's essentially the trials for ADCC. So if you win, you're in ADCC, right?
I don't know. Is that what that is?
I don't know. That's kind of what I heard. I just figured maybe you had inside info that I didn't know since you're actually doing it.
Yeah, so people have realized I don't have a filter, and they've decided not to give me inside info. All
right, so you're in the dark. So either way, you're going to try to win, and then if you still have to go to trials, that's fine. You'll end up at ADCC.
Yeah, if I lose the match and I got to do the trials, I always assumed I'd have to win the trials to do the ADCC anyways, and I'm completely okay with that. I think it's fair. I don't want the notoriety or the fame that the Daisy Fresh series has brought to selectively push me ahead of my skill level. If I go and I do the trials and I lose, then I would have lost at ADCC and I need to work on shit.
Not really sure whether or not you win trials, and you're okay, whether or not if you win this, you get out of trials or not, but you're okay with that.
Yeah, no, if I win or lose, if I don't get an invite to the ADCC, I always assumed I would have to win the trials. I have no idea. I'd always assume I have to win the trials to get in anyways. And that to me feels like earning your spot. So if I don't get an invitational, whether I win or lose, I'm perfectly happy to go and do the trials and win the trials and then earn my spot in the ADCC. I don't want the Daisy Fresh fame or anything like that to put me ahead of my station. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now that you want to be good, not just be famous, right? So you want to get ahead because of that. All right. So what does your training look like kind of getting ready for this? Does it change much, or is it the normal stuff?
it's a 20-minute match where they're doing ADCC final rules, which is horrible. So it's like the first 10 minutes, there's no points. And that I actually have a small problem with that because I'm a very strong positional player where I'm very, very, very good at passing the guard. I've got good takedowns. I've got good sweeps. And I kind of do a lot of my submissions from better positions, like side control, mount, getting on the back. And Roberto's tough enough that, you have to break him off to tap him. Gordon broke his arm twice before he tapped. So that's the first 10 minutes being no points. Part of me almost feels like there's no point in really like turning the pace up in the first 10 minutes, which is not exciting for the fans. So I'm just not a fan of that format in general. I think points are good because they keep track of who's been positionally dominant. Now, I like positional. But 20 minutes, so getting ready for the fight, there has been a lot of cardio, like a lot. The technical doesn't even matter because it's going to come down to who gets exhausted first, unless he just catches me in something, or unless I can just like fully pressure him in the mouth. Like it's going to come down to who gets exhausted and starts getting sloppy. And the problem is Roberto has an unlimited fucking gas tank. Like I haven't even seen him get tired. And like, that doesn't matter how long the match is. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but I get tired. I do, to be honest,
Yeah, no, that's so like when you talk about, tons of cardio that you're doing, are you like running miles or assault bike or burpees or all of it? What does that kind of look like?
Do a lot of sprint drills. I go out and I'll do sprints up the hill next to the gym where I'll do like I like to do 15 or 20 rounds where I think the uphill is 120, 130 meters and then downhill. And I'll do a 30-second break between them for the first 10 rounds. And then the next 5 rounds, I'll do a 45-second break. And then the next 5 rounds after that, I'll do a 50 or 60-second break. So the whole process doesn't take that long. It's like 20 or 30 minutes to do all of it. But holy fuck, it's horrible.
Yeah, that sounds fucking terrible. So
twice a week, I'll do like 21. I think they call them suicides almost with lifting, where like you're doing overhead press squats from 21 to 18 to 15 to 12 all the way down to 0, and then after you do your sets, you're jumping over those and sprawling for that number 2. And then I drill a lot, so I'm just trying to. The point of drilling, how I'm drilling right now, is to make everything automatic. So even if I'm exhausted, I'm still doing the same movements and the same intensity as hard as I can, because that's just kind of the default.
Yeah, because as we all know, like when you get exhausted, sometimes your brain just leaves and you like aren't even thinking, and you leave an arm like this or whatever because you're like, fuck, I'm so tired, I don't care. And you just turn that way or whatever. So yeah, if you can practice, like no matter how tired you are, I always stay on point. That makes sense.
Yeah. So actually on that subject, it's surprising how often good guys don't get pressured and put in bad positions. So when I'm going with another like really, really high level, like brown or black belt world champion type guy, they are not used to someone like actually threatening to guard past them if they're a guard player. And because of that unfamiliarity, they will make mistakes and kind of like freak out a little more in those positions where you're just about to pass their guard, and then they'll give up a lot of different stuff. And it's the same thing when they get exhausted, they do the same thing. Like you were saying, they forget about their arm placement or they forget about their hip placement or whatever's going on. You can, like anyone in the world can get beaten, just because the better you get, the less people threaten you and the less effort you have to put in to beat better people. So you start to get like not lazy, but used to not having to try as hard. So anyone that's super, super good can lose as long as you are ready to fucking like bring the pace and push them out of their comfort zone.
So I know like the DDS guys, right? Like they're big on that. Like they'll start rear naked in, body triangle, and be like, all right, I got to practice escapes for the next 20 minutes. Do you do that same kind of thing, like putting yourself in really shitty positions so you're comfortable there?
Yeah, Heath makes us start in some really fucking horrible positions. I hate that kind of training myself. Like I don't have any fun starting in a front headlock or what have you.
Yes.
I was actually just doing a camp up at Toledo, Ohio. I was training with Dante Leon, and he does a lot of positional stuff too. So he was making me start with like the guy behind me in a body lock, chasing my back, or the guy in a front headlock, or full flattened out half guard. And I'm like, man, if I'm in these positions in a real match, I'm fucked, because I would never let myself get put here to begin with, or I'm so tired I pulled half guard. But that kind of stuff is important. The way I train personally, I train more for offense than defense. I don't focus a lot of time on doing escapes. I don't focus a lot of time on doing like mount, like dealing with being in mount. Like no one mounts me. I don't plan on ever getting mounted in a competition. So that's not where I put my focus. I think it's more efficient to focus on your own offense to the point where like you're really, really comfortable pushing the pace on your opponent. You don't let them get their offense going. But I also recognize that you do have to have an idea of what to do when you're put in those bad positions, because it's going to happen. So it doesn't come down to like what you should train. It comes down to like how much of your attention you focus on certain areas.
So would you say it's like 80-20 offense to defense, or how do you kind of break that down?
Personally, I do like 90-10, if that at all, maybe 95-5. But like the problem with what I do, like I'm aware of this, is that there is, so like if I went with Gordon Ryan and he put me in a bad spot, I am in a lot more trouble than if I put Gordon Ryan in a bad spot. So yeah. But the problem is he's so good at everything already.
Yeah. So you brought him up. What are your thoughts on him? Do you like that he talks so much shit that he's kind of flamboyant, or you're like, it's a little too much, it's not my thing?
Gordon Ryan is the undisputed best no-gi grappler in the world. He is another American that is making the Brazilians very, very sad, which is historically what I've done in all the lower belts. And you would be surprised the level of, I want to say blatant, like racism that there is in jiu-jitsu against, like from Brazilian culture towards non-Brazilian culture, especially with the fact that Brazilians are all the refs and they run all the big organizations, which is slowly starting to change. So I have a lot of respect for Gordon Ryan. I think he's an analytical mind in terms of jiu-jitsu. Like I've been able to learn a lot of technique watching him roll and listening to him talk. So I appreciate what he's doing.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it there. All right. Yeah. So let's step back a little bit.
Personalities don't matter when it comes to technique.
Yeah. I mean, and his technique is fucking amazing. All right. So let's kind of go back to like, I think I've heard this story, but I kind of want to hear it directly from the person. How did you initially kind of get into jiu-jitsu? Like what drew you to it?
So I was always probably going to gravitate towards some kind of martial art or some kind of fighting system, because my dad, he was a big time wrestler when he was in high school. So to preface this, my dad is now like 77. Okay, he's very fucking old. So he was wrestling when it was like 1950 or 1960. Okay, but he was a big wrestler in high school. He was like 64-4. And the guy he lost to all 4 times was the guy that just like dominated the states and the nationals and shit. So he would tell us stories about him fighting like other people from other martial arts, like karate guys that would challenge him, or taekwondo guys, or he would like hear about someone picking on someone else and he would step up. So like my dad kind of set the stage for me to be a fighter really early into our lives. And we kind of grew up, like I would run home from school in California literally as fast as I could. And I would, because our parents didn't actually monitor what the fuck we did. So we walked home at like a mile downhill, and I would run home to watch Dragon Ball Z because I was fascinated with fighting. And I would like try to get my little brother, who's, if I was 7, he was probably like 3. I'm like, let's train. And he's like, what the fuck does that mean? And I was like, just beat him up. I was always going to be into some kind of fighting. And what happened was when I was 10, my dad wanted to move from California back to Michigan, because Michigan is originally where both of my parents are from. Okay. And he wanted to move to Drummond Island, Michigan, because he had been there before. He knew it was like a really isolated far north area where he'd be able to hunt, he'd be able to fish, and basically be left alone and not have to deal with hot weather. Okay. And when we moved there, when my sister came out to join us, my sister is half black. We have the same mom, but we have different dads. And the people on the island, not the adults, but the kids, had never seen a black person before in their entire lives. Not one time. They had only seen caricatures of them in cartoons and on television, which, especially like, 10 plus years ago, that wasn't the greatest representation of black people.
Sure.
So and plus their parents were like these hardcore Republicans that had moved to the island with a lot of money, because it's a great place to retire. It's a great place to visit. So they had a lot of racial prejudice. Okay. And I don't even blame them, because they were kids. They don't know better. But they would just say the N-word out of nowhere. Like they'd be like, yeah, fuck these N-words. And I'd be like, motherfucker. And I would start getting into fights because like they would do so I try to be careful when I say about this now because I do understand I'm like painting the island I grew up on in a bad light. But to be perfectly honest, the place is kind of fucked up. Like there's a lot of racism on the island. So they would one time we went to a restaurant and my sister got napkins out of the container and then they threw the whole container away and replaced it because she's a black person that touched the container. And I'm like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So that is when I started getting into fights and started having a lot of aggression towards the people that I was around. And I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in Topanga Canyon, California, and my sister went to school at Columbine, basically, or Malcolm, like it's down in the valley in Los Angeles, and she would deal with a lot of like gangs and stuff like that, and I was kind of tangentially involved when I was like 6 with that because she's about 4 years older than me, and I remember when we moved, it was such a culture shock because the people were. I went from Los Angeles people to Topanga Canyon people, which are either hippies or gangsters, to Drummond Island people who the only thing they look forward to is getting fucked up on the weekends and fucking their cousin. It's like it's just so fucking weird place, okay? And it was I was like dealing with culture shock because they were just not my kind of people, and I was dealing with I was getting picked on a little bit because I was a weird kid. All I did was read books and play video games and like think about fighting, and they hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, four-wheeling, getting drunk, doing drugs. That was all anyone had to do on the island because we were more than an hour and a half from the closest McDonald's or Walmart. So everyone would get their groceries one time a month. They would go to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. It's an hour drive, but you have to take the ferry boat. You have to drive 20, 30 minutes to the ferry boat, wait in line, take the ferry boat across, spend money on it, drive an hour to the Sioux, buy all your groceries for the month, and then drive back and then spend the ferry boat fee again to get back to the island. So you see how that's
it kind of locks you in, like everybody is just kind of stuck here essentially.
People get stuck there. I actually I'm 28 now. I've been out of high school for 12 years, and I recently have looked back on some of the people I went to high school with that are still on the island, and they're almost unrecognizable in terms of like how their life is gone. Like it's definitely a place that you get stuck if you're not careful. I think it's a fantastic place to retire, and there are amazing people on the island, but I just don't think it's a great place to raise kids. And me and my little brother moved there when we were 10. I was 10. He might have been 6 or 7, and my older sister was 15 maybe. So yeah, it's just I don't want to just paint the island in a bad light. I think it's a great place to visit, but I had a bad experience there, and that's what got me into fighting. So my mom and dad got divorced when we moved to the island, and she moved out to Hawaii and got joint custody of me and my little brother, and she would bring us out to Hawaii in the summers against our will because we didn't want to go. I was terrified I don't like flying, but I was really terrified of flying back then. And the first summer that we went out there, she's like, well, you need to do something, because I was actually dealing with a lot of anger problems. I was actually getting forced to go to counseling for the amount of anger that I had, and the fact that my parents were getting divorced, and I was dealing with racist fucks and like everything. And she's like, you need to do something. So she brought me to a judo class on the Big Island, and I did that for the summer, and I was like, this is fucking awesome. And then I went back to Drummond Island after that, and I found out there was a guy named Mike Ogden that was actually teaching judo out of his garage. Or it was actually out of his living room. He would just pull the mats out, and there were holes in his wall where the kids had like gone through the wall. So it was awesome. I showed up there, and there were a couple of the kids there that were kids I was having problems with in my school. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fuck you motherfuckers up. And I essentially, I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but the whole kids class quit within like a month of me starting, because I would just beat the fuck out of them. Like I didn't like give up a single point or a single match for a month because I had so much rage. I just couldn't. So, but the instructor, Mike Ogden, he became essentially my mentor for the next like 6 years. And he would work with me basically private lessons, but still like through the class. like no one would show up, so it'd be just me and him for like a year at a time. He'd do judo, and judo has some very, very rudimentary groundwork. So there's some jiu-jitsu. Like I knew what an armbar was, but I didn't have good setups. I knew what a triangle was, but I didn't really know how to finish it. And I did that until I was 18, and then I went to college. Around that time is when I met Heath, and I got the opportunity to move down to the gym full time. They told me there was going to be a house. There was no house. There was just the gym. But my dream at the time had always been to just train full time. That's all I wanted to do. I knew I was obsessed with it. And then he gave me the opportunity to do that. And I just I dropped out of college, and I just drove down, told my dad last minute, I'm like, hey, I'm moving to Illinois. He's like, why? I said, I'm going to be a full-time fighter. He's like, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going, and I just showed up, and lived in the gym for 8 years now.
All right. So you kind of led me exactly where I was kind of heading. So to talk about the gym, you guys are actually doing some improvements, right? Like, weren't you like working on that today?
Yeah. So a lot of people at this point in my career, like everyone knows a lot about me at this point. I've shared a lot of my personal life on social media and through different like Flow Grappling, Daisy Fresh series itself, and through podcasts. We are at our point now where we're starting to make a little bit of money doing our BJJ Fanatics instructionals. It turns out, believe this or not, people actually like hearing me teach. And I guess I do a good job teaching because they keep coming back and buying it. So we have five instructionals in the store right now, and they are actually selling decently well. So me and my little brother, for the first time in our life, we have a little excess money. We're like, what do we do with this? We don't need anything material. I have a box with now I have insulation and drywall. I'm actually in the box right now. You can see. And I'm like, well, what else do I need? Okay, I have a dog and I have a computer. I'm pretty fucking happy. But we're trying to invest back into the gym a little bit because there's so many people moving from all over the world to come train with us now. Now that we've hit that level of notoriety that everyone's like, okay, we're legit. We just won first place at the No-Gi Pans as a team. So that doesn't just mean that like everyone is always like on board with like, okay, well, Andrew's awesome. He just won the world's brown belt. But what about everyone else? Now everyone knows that our entire team is good. So our methodology is solid at the very least. We have something to back up what we do. And we have a lot of people moving to the gym to come train. So I'm doing stuff like I'm investing back in, I got a bunch of new gloves for the kickboxing class and some mitts. We just got a new sink installed so we can actually wash dishes instead of not be able to wash dishes. I had an electrician come in and install some new power lines so we wouldn't have to daisy chain, like 4 extension cords together just to power the fan and timer in the gym. It was very sketchy, but we're trying to get past all that now. So we're in a much better spot. Things are finally looking up for the first time in our lives.
So do you think kind of, thinking back in the day what the gym kind of looked like, do you think training in that environment kind of helped where you're like, I don't give a shit. It's all about the training. Like the environment doesn't matter. We're just going to get better. Did that kind of help you on your path?
That has been my mentality my entire jiu-jitsu career. And, that entirely comes from Heath being such a great coach and a great mentor. So okay, let me, I'm not trying to attack Atos or anything, but Atos is one of the best teams in the world. Okay, so they're a great example of stuff. Okay, a lot of the Atos guys and a lot of the Atos kids, they get this insane level of notoriety when they win a couple tournaments at blue belt and purple belt. Okay, like they win some majors at blue belt and majors at purple belt, but they have this massive team backing them that pushes them into the spotlight. We didn't have that. I was by far the best blue belt in the world when I was a blue belt. I won the No-Gi Pans easily. I won the No-Gi Pans Open. I won the Worlds. I won the Worlds Open. Like I won absolutely everything at blue belt. Nobody knew who I was because we were just a little team out of the Midwest. We would show up with these red jackets on, and we would just kind of rape and pillage. And they're like, oh wow, that was weird. That guy just won that division in the Open. Who the fuck's this motherfucker? And then they would forget about it. We didn't have a big team backing us. We had no spotlight. When we were starting out, that Flow Grappling didn't even exist. So we had nothing to push us into, no support at all. We built everything up by ourselves from the ground up through attrition. We just showed up to every tournament. We would do as good as we can at every tournament. And because of the way that we train, we would generally do better than the other teams. So it's kind of wild looking back now. Like everyone's like, "Oh my God, you guys just exploded onto the scene." We did not. I've lived in the gym for 8 years, and I've done every single major, every local tournament. I do foodie still. Like we've been all over the place. We've won team tournaments that people don't even realize we won as our one academy. Now we are starting to build some affiliation schools, and the way we do affiliations are people will reach out to us. They're like, "Hey, we train out of this garage. We don't have anyone helping us. What can you guys help us?" And we're like, "Yeah, come down to the gym for a week. Let me get to know you. Let me see how you train and make sure you're not, like we're selective about who we let into our association, but we're starting to build up like this weirdo little army. Now, like we were able to go to the Pans and win first place as a team. We beat Atos and Checkmat. We beat Gracie Baja and we beat Gracie Maida, like at all these major associations. So it's really wild to look back, knowing what we started as. Like when I was a white belt, Keith had just got his purple belt. He couldn't even coach us in the bullpen. They wouldn't let him in. They literally threatened to kick him out of the whole IBJJF and ban him forever if he like tried to sneak in one more time because they knew who the fuck he was. It's just wild, man.
Do you ever see yourself working out of like a big modern gym like Atos HQ or something like that, or are you always going to keep it a little more, I don't know if grimy is the right word, a little bit more kind of like down to earth kind of gyms? What do you think?
No, so here's the thing about that, man. Everyone knows that the AC Fresh Gym is a piece of shit building. It's horrible. The mat's fucking off. They're awful. The gym gets to 120 degrees in the summer. It's fucking terrible. But that's just because that's what we have. We make do with what we have, and we're happy with what we have because we don't think the building matters as much as the people matter. And we want to get a better building. We want to have it like triple our mat space. We want to have like AC in the gym because you can train harder with AC. We don't think that because our gym is as hot as it is, that's because we're doing it on purpose. Our building doesn't have AC. We don't have the option. Like I think it's more efficient to train at 75 degrees because you go harder for longer. It's like we just do what we can because that's how we have things. And at one point, hopefully we're going to have a nice building. We're going to have like a building that reflects the skill level of our team. And we'll be able to camp like this mega, like the mecca of jiu-jitsu for the Midwest, essentially. That's kind of like how I want things to go because our technique is really good. Our mentality is really good. And I think that we can help elevate the sport of jiu-jitsu. We just don't have the facility right now, but we are working on it. So we're not proud that we train in a shithole. That's not like we're not doing this on purpose. We don't like keep the building that we're in because we want the story to be a certain way. I've heard these comments online. Our people just don't care. We just don't care. We don't care if we're rolling on cracked mats. It doesn't bother any of our people, not one. And if it did and they quit, our mentality is, you know what, maybe they're maybe better off at a Gracie Minor or something like that. Like I don't think everyone wants to train the way we train, which is also fine. I'm aware of the nuance of like casual training versus competitive training. So one day we'll have a mega facility and we'll be able to really genuinely compete with like Atos and Checkmat and all them. But for now, we're just doing the best we can with what we've got.
Obviously, you guys are doing awesome at it. So thinking about kind of your training going into, a big tournament, whether it's Road ACC or Pans or whatever, what does your training kind of typically look like? If you break it down, like, let's say in a week, like how many times are you rolling? How much strength and conditioning are you doing? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So our training week actually starts on Sunday. We have this massive open mat at 5 o'clock on Sunday so our gym in general, a lot of people don't realize we don't do affiliation shit whatsoever. We don't have a mat drop-in fee. People come and they stay for 1 to 4 weeks or 1 to 8 weeks, and they go back to their main gym and they represent their team, and it's fine. Because for us, it's not about, we don't care about that. We just want like good. We want to have a lot of training partners. We think the essence of jiu-jitsu is about training with everyone all the time as often as you can. So Sunday at 5, we have this giant open mat where people come from all over the Midwest to train. And Monday we have our official drilling session, which is also like you can live roll. It's basically like an open mat, but like most people come in and drill, do some conditioning and stretch and everything. And that starts at noon, but we also push that back to 10 sometimes. So there's people drilling from like 9 in the morning at that point. Okay. So the drilling session could look like a 1 hour drilling session followed by conditioning, or it could be like a 4 hour drilling session followed by no conditioning. Okay. Myself personally, depending on what I'm drilling, I'll drill for 1 to 2 hours, and then I'll always do my conditioning afterwards. Okay, because I don't want to do my conditioning first and then drill like shit. Okay, and then I'll always stretch afterwards, because flexibility is more important than being strong. Kinda. I don't think Kanyan agrees with that, but kind of. Okay, so that can take anywhere from 1 to 4+ hours, depending on what you're working on at the time. And then we have a break in the middle of the day, and then we'll start training again. We have a kickboxing class for cardio and shit that starts at 5, and then our technique jiu-jitsu starts at 6, and then we'll start rolling from like 6:45 or 7, depending on what is being shown for technique, until 8:30. And our night competition training is really hard, because people don't realize too, like our gym doesn't have a ton of people. Like I think if you added up the total of every single person that trains at the gym pays, it's going to be less than 150, I think. But our night class has 50 people in the room. Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Those are our biggest days. We have 50 people training at night. So we have to do stuff like groups A and B rolling on the mats, where you like split the fucking whole gym into half. Okay, I need all the brown, purple, and black belts. You come on the mat and grab a partner. Okay, you'll have 30 people rolling in just group A. And then next group will be all the white belts. That'll be group B, 60 people on the mats. But if we had a bigger building, we wouldn't have to do that. We could just let everyone roll at the same time.
Nice. Okay. And so basically like the whole week is kind of structured the same way as like those couple days pretty much.
Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is basically the same format. We like train in the morning at noon, or if you come in at 10 or whatever you're doing, you drill in the mornings and you roll hardest fuck at night. And then Friday we have it's not a rest day technically, but a lot of people don't do a lot on Fridays because we don't have a lot of classes going on. Like people come in at like noon and they'll drill, but it's not as hard. And then people will come in again at 5 o'clock. We would open that, and they'll just work on whatever they're doing, or they'll roll or whatever it is. It's just an open day. And then Saturday I try to take completely off. My theory, the way I look at it is I do so much hard stuff during the week that if I didn't need to completely have Saturday off, I wasn't doing enough. So Saturday, I need one full rest day, but I try to earn the rest day by just fucking myself up so much that I absolutely need the rest day.
All right. So everybody knows you love Panda Express, but other than Panda Express, what do you eat like in a typical week?
So when me and my little brother were really poor, and we were like, we were living on, we actually did get food stamps for a while. And I know that's really, people have weird Republican opinions about that. Like you should not ever get state help or whatever. But we had food stamps for a little while, and we would live on like ramen, and the highlight of the week would be if we added eggs to the ramen when we cooked them, so we get some protein with the carbs. And we just lived like that. We did that for years. And then when we started to make a little bit of money teaching some classes at other places, doing some privates, then we would get rotisserie chickens and some rice. Okay, now that we're making a little bit more money doing the BJJ Fanatics DVDs, now we're eating like chicken, or sometimes we'll eat salmon even, but with rice and some vegetables, and that's our healthy meal. But of course, there's always room for Panda Express.
All right. So, you've mentioned your instructionals, and I know you have a buzzsaw passing instructional, but I believe you also have a stopping the buzzsaw pass instructional. Am I right on that?
Yeah. Okay. So I right now I have 5 in the store. I have the gi buzzsaw passing, which was my first ever instructional, and I pour my heart and soul into these instructionals. They're the culmination of years of abuse, like learning technique. So I remember when I was a blue belt, there was a point where I was like, I could go harder, I could go smarter. And I was like, well, I'm already going really hard. Maybe I should go smarter and like learn some better technique. And I decided I wanted to be a more technical person. even though I had been known up until that point as someone who was just all animosity on the mat. I would like make people fucking cry. I would just go so hard. But you know, your body only lasts so long if you do that. You have to add the technique because there's going to be people that can weather the storm. And then if you're exerting more force than they are, and you're getting tired faster than they are, they're going to be ready to capitalize on that. So I started working on my technique a lot as a blue belt, and now I'm a black belt, and I think my technique is very solid at this point. I try to focus most of my attention on stuff that I think is genuinely going to work. I do think people show bullshit, not only in their instructionals, but people will show you stuff that they don't do. They'll be like, okay, from here you do this, and you can ask them, when is the last time you actually did that? And they'll be like, fuck you, you know. So people bullshit in their instructionals, and they bullshit all the time when they teach technique. Okay, my mission is to only show you stuff that I actually do. Now, part of that means that I will never be putting out an 11-hour instructional on back control, because you don't need 11 hours to show you everything that I do when I'm on someone's back to make it work. And some people are going to like that, and some people aren't going to like that. But I just, I think that if you stick to your area of expertise, you're always going to be intellectually honest. So I have buzzsaw, gi, and no gi, where I show essentially my whole passing style for gi and no gi. And then I have wrestling up no gi, because a lot of when I was thinking about that one, I was like, okay, if you're a D1 wrestler that gets talked into doing jiu-jitsu by your buddy, and you want to learn what to do on your back, this is what I would want to know. Okay, it's like, where do I wrestle up from? How do I play those guards to get to my wrestle up positions? Essentially, like, how do I even get into those guards? So I try to show everything I know about a topic. And then I have gi side control, where I show like my actual game when I'm in side control in the gi. And then what the fuck is the last one?
I think you have a stop, like stopping the buzzsaw pass.
Yeah, stopping the buzzsaw. Essentially, how do you not get past? So it's funny, actually. People, the flow grappling and people online talk about my guard retention like it's the thing I give a shit about. I pull guard because wrestling is hard. You know, like I don't always pull guard, but I have good takedowns. But pulling guard is, I don't know. I just feel like people are not good at guard passing. I feel like guard passing takes so much more skill than guard retention. So my focus is always on guard passing. And they wanted me to, I decided I don't get my guard passed fucking ever. You know, like Kanyan can pass my guard. And I'm like, you know what? Everyone talks about how my guard retention is really good. I'm like, okay, I'll just show everything I know about guard pass or guard retention. And if people want to buy it, that's cool. And I just try to show everything I know about something, everything I've like systemized and I'm aware of. So I have stopping the buzzsaw, how to not get your guard passed by an asshole like me.
And then, are you kind of giving away, like, are you saying like, hey, to my competitors, this is how you would stop me when I try to pass your guard, or you don't give a shit and you're passing anywhere?
I don't give a shit, because I don't think if you're winning based off secret knowledge, you're gimmicky and you're gonna lose. Okay, like if what you're doing is only working because they don't know how to counter it, that's gonna, people are gonna innovate. They're gonna out innovate you. Okay, and you'll have to be constantly trying to win that innovation battle. But jiu-jitsu as a sport has not advanced to the point where everyone's that good, to where the margins are not that small. Their margins are huge. People are awful. They don't drill. They don't bother being good high level athletes. So you can get away with just being like that much better than people what you do. Okay. And in terms of like, I'm not worried about anyone knowing what I'm going to try to go for, because I don't focus on the shit that requires you to be unaware of what I'm doing. How do you stop an arm drag? You keep your elbows in. Well, how do you stop a dummy sweep followed by an arm drag, followed by reverse De La Riva entries, followed by wrestle up? You know, it's like, who can chain all of their stuff together the most effectively? So it's like, there's so far for the sport to go still. Like, I don't care if everyone knows everything I'm going to do. I got to steal so much free knowledge from like guys like John Thomas and Marcelo Garcia, and Heath is a technical wizard, and like all these guys that I got to watch them rolling online. So like I'm completely okay just putting everything I do out there, because if it's not working, if you know what I'm going to do, that means I just need to work on other stuff, or I need to like consolidate my game better. Or I need to, there's always an answer for everything.
So kind of thinking about your philosophy, are you on the side of I want to be good at lots and lots of things so that I have counters to lots of different things? Or are you like, I don't care. These are from the top, I'm going these two ways. From the bottom, I'm going these two ways. Try and stop it.
So
What
my
camp do you?
game is actually really rounded, I think. Like I can wrestle, I can do judo, I can pull guard, and I can go for sweeps, I can go for submissions, I can go for wrestle ups. If I'm on top, my passing is really, really defined and really high level. So I think at a high level, like a jiu-jitsu high level competition wise, you have to be pretty rounded. You know, when you're a blue belt, you can specialize because people aren't able to deal with your specialty. They're not good enough yet. When you're a purple belt, you can still specialize a little bit, but people are starting to get a little more savvy. When you're a brown belt, you essentially have to be pretty good at everything. You know, people are able to shut down your A game now. How's your B game? When you're a black belt, you have to be astounding at everything.
Oh, you mentioned, kind of as you think of the future, you do want, Daisy Fresh to kind of be the Mecca in the Midwest. Other than that, what does the future kind of hold for you?
So for me personally, so I've been actually thinking about this quite a bit. Like I'm not even close to the end of my competition career. I'm 28 years old. I'm 28 years young. Like I have a lot of fury left. I can make quite a few Brazilians still sob into their arms before I'm done. So it's like I'm not done competing. But I'm thinking like in 3 or 4 years, when the body starts to give out a little bit, there's going to be obviously the natural transition is going to be towards teaching. And right now I get to split my focus a little bit where I get to teach what I actually do right now to people online with the BJJ Fanatics DVDs and with my YouTube account and everything, which is, to me, it's fucking incredible that people actually give a shit what I have to say. That's still astounding to me because they know I live in a box, right? Like my opinion should be, there should be weight, but, in 3 or 4 years, there might be a transition towards maybe opening a Pedigo Submission Fighting a gym somewhere, or transitioning towards teaching and still competing at the majors. But not everyone competes less and less the older they get. So I'm not trying to be stupid and like only focus on competing now with no thoughts towards the future. I want to have a backup plan. I want to have like a natural transition towards stuff, and probably going to be towards some kind of instructor or teacher. Because that's the whole point of jiu-jitsu at that point. And when you're like 40, you can't compete. And if you don't have another degree somewhere, what do you do? Well, you better be a good teacher.
Yes.
Luckily, I am. So
yeah, and I am 40. You can compete. It's just not at a very high level.
yeah, so like if you jumped into the masters division or the adult division, that black belt, it would be hard.
Yeah, you would get
Much
murdered.
harder. You're dealing with a lot of natural disadvantages from your age, and unless you're going to do like shitloads of testosterone, like most people actually do, then
unless you're cyborg, it's hard to compete at 40 in the black belt adult division.
Yeah, exactly. Like they have to be just like loaded out of their mind on gear, acai, and
Yes.
then they do okay.
Yes.
But I actually think at that point, jiu-jitsu is going to be finally over their bullshit, and they will actually drug test the athletes. Like that's going to happen. If it doesn't fucking happen, I'm going to make it my personal mission and make it happen, because it's fucking ridiculous that they don't drug test in a sport that is 90% decided by athleticism over technique. So it'll happen. So it'll be actually harder for older individuals to compete in the adult divisions, I think.
All right. So, you mentioned you have the instructionals on BJJ Fanatics. What's your YouTube so people can go and watch your videos?
Okay, so the name of my YouTube is very weird. It's very hard for people to find. It's actually Andrew Wiltsey. You just look that up online. I know it's a hard name to spell. And then we actually have the Pedigo Submission Fighting YouTube. And so we kind of have this split where like I show videos of technique and I show videos of me just rolling and beating the shit out of people or getting taken down by white belts, depending on how the day went. And the Pedigo Submission Fighting YouTube is kind of like more flow grappling style, where they do like episodes of tournaments, or they do really cool technique stuff, or I don't know, they put a lot of effort into the editing their stuff. Me and my little brother just fuck around for 10 minutes on the phone or the laptop. So I like it. Our personality gets to come out through our editing, and we don't take people should realize at this point, me and my little brother Satya do not take ourselves very seriously. we're astounded by any fame or like acclaims or whatever we get. We're like, wow, that's fucking weird that they actually like us. You know, we don't take ourselves seriously at all, though, and it reflects in our channel.
No, but I think that also somewhat goes to why you guys are becoming more and more popular, because they can see like, all right, these are the real guys and they don't fuck around. They're not into all the other nonsense. They're just into, being badasses. So that's okay.
Isn't that just the weirdest catch-22?
Yeah.
Like being famous is like, me and my little brother, like, well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, like it's not our priority, and then that's making us more famous. So we're like, all right, whatever.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I know you have some stuff to do. You guys are fixing up the gym, so I will let you get back to it. But I really appreciate you spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. This was fun.
All right, cool. Thank you.